Oh,
Hello.
how you doing?
Surprisingly well, all things considered.
Very good. Yeah, sounds like you had some mic problems happening. You
Oh,
okay now?
yep, you bet. I just have to do a little bit of
Awesome.
dating real quick. But
Yep.
I had this whole introduction planned out to read to you, but yeah, now that I'm looking at it and now that we're actually talking, it seems just kind of fake.
Okay. Yeah. Let's just talk. Shoot the questions you want.
Yeah, so
However you want to do it.
so I have a lot of questions here. 35 specifically, I already told you, but it might expand it to more depending on uh, how the questions go. So, all right.
Okay. And tell you what, if we can't get around to all of them in this hour, if you want, and it goes well, I'm cool doing like a round 2 later on if you want. So, however you want to do this.
I'm pretty sure we can crush all these questions. They're probably not
All right.
all that loaded. Maybe a
Okay.
few of them are, but still. So,
Cool.
first question, the thing that came to me first when I wrote these down was this. Question 1. What would you say is the driving force for your art?
Oh, I mean, I've always been creative since I was like really little, and I'm lucky that I had parents that kind of encouraged that. So I've always had this feeling to like just give it a shot and see what happens. And I think it's just kind of part of me that I would rather give something a try and see if it works and handle the failure than the alternative of being like, oh well, I never really got around to it, and I wish and I could have and I should have, and we build up enough regrets as it is. So it's just one of those things that means a lot to me to keep trying at.
Yeah, I understand. When it comes to creating art, you just gotta really just knuckle down and just put everything you have into it, right? Or like, what am I trying to say here? Sorry, I have it. First time nervousness. You get it.
It's okay. You're fine. You're doing great.
Yeah,
yep,
thank you.
You're doing fine.
Yeah, a lot of people can relate to your driving force, me included. And I like to think that I think the same way as you do when it comes to the creation of art.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. I got question number 2 here. What was your transition story like from male to female?
Oh goodness, that's one that's really private. I don't really talk about that sort of thing because honestly, it's more of a matter of like every person has it. No, not even that. But I believe that every person's story is really different, and some people are very, very open about it, and they want to be encouraging to other people for that. And I think I'd like to too in time, but considering it's still something that's sort of occurring, it's hard to describe. It's sort of like somebody asking you like what it's like to I don't know. It's such a personal thing that I don't even have answers to really share with people on it yet. So it's just sort of a fact about me. I think the more I would rather have people look at this fact about me like a detail, the same way I would be right-handed, or that I have brown hair, or that I grew up in Michigan or something like that. Just the qualifying detail about me, and the bearing it has on the work I do is I'm sure it affects it, but it's not something that is I guess it's just not something I open up to people a whole lot about yet. So yeah.
It seems like a pretty personal thing all around. I would know it because I have a couple of trans friends myself, and one of them has been going through a really rough patch of it late because of the whole they live in America and things like that. especially in like
Yeah.
one of the more like southern regions of America, where that's just a bit,
Oh, yeah. The closer you get to Florida, the more
the
people
more,
have an opinion that they need to bring to you, and
yeah, and
they.
it's just, yeah, gross. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, people who get off on a casual sense of cruelty, they'll punch down at anyone they can, and so, yeah, we end up getting made a bullseye a lot for it, and it's infuriating. And my experience with it is something really personal that I just feel like I
You
would love
wouldn't.
to talk about it at some point,
Yeah,
but it's just so I feel so larval about it still that I just rather keep quiet, work on my stuff, and then when I'm ready to talk, I'll talk. But yeah,
yeah. Um,
I'm lucky that I've had a lot of support. I've had a lot of really good people that have my back. I really haven't run into a lot of people that give me any attitude or single me out for it. I wish everybody had that luck. So it's as far as that sort of thing goes, I am very blessed to have a lot of support and backing.
it comes down to it like people treating it like art, right? You have a lot of support for your art. You have a lot of support for your transition. It's nice.
It is.
Yeah,
It is. I'm very lucky.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um, this is more skipping the question because I'm moving on to question 18 because I feel like it will flow better. But
Sure.
uh, oh, before I continue, is it pronounced Gyossait or Geosite?
Oh, yeah. No, it's everyone gets it a different version of it or gives a different version of it. But the correct pronunciation is Gyossait.
Gyossite. Okay.
Yep.
Yes.
And yeah, but I'm not put off by people, mispronouncing it. It's kind of part of the fun for me, I guess.
Yeah, that wasn't one of the main questions. That was just one of those like side questions that I brought up before we started doing this. But
Uh-huh. Yeah.
um, question 18. Geosite or Geosite to many is a comfort game, right? It is to me. Would you say that in retrospect there was a lot of internalized pain to it, i.e., gender dysphoria or things similar to that?
In a sense, I mean, gender dysphoria was one of the many things that um I like making something out of my pain that isn't the equivalent of making somebody read a diary entry. I feel like when I make something that is going to go out to the unwashed masses, then it's going to be something that I want people to be comfortable to critique. And even if I want to bare my soul in something, I feel like it's important um, as being an entertainer to kind of make it an allegory instead of a direct reading. That way, people can be free to also find their own connections to it.
Mm.
So when I made Gyossait, um, there were a lot of things that I was going through in my life at the time, and gender identity was one of the many, many ones. And I used Gyossait as a place to kind of talk about that. Um, but yeah, it could be a lot of different things. I had uh, I was struggling with relationship issues at the time.
I could see that, yeah.
Um, yeah, obviously.
Yeah.
I was in a lonely place. I'd moved to a new city, and it was a mixed bag because on one hand it was a much nicer, safer, more comfortable place, but I'd also lost everybody I knew,
Mm.
and it wasn't really like that I could like just hop in the car and go see them. Uh, and I think Gyossait was a lot of me feeling very, very alone. So I used that as I wanted to convey that feeling of loneliness or that there were people around, but there's no way you'd ever be able to really reach them,
Or
you
like
know?
relate to them or any way like that.
Right. like being an alien in the world around you, and you're not in Kansas anymore.
Yeah, I could feel that.
Mm-hmm.
For Gyossait, this is question 17, by the way.
Uh-huh.
For Gyossait, did you ever think about the massive legacy it left behind for both you and the world of like these quote unquote weirdo games as a whole? Because as I keep thinking about Gyossait in retrospect, it just keeps like this little spot in my brain, right? Like one of the folds is like directly containing the entirety of Gyossait. Does it have like that same feeling for you and the legacy of Gyossait?
When I think about Gyossait, I feel really lucky that like I had a chance to make something like that. I remember the year I went to GDC when Gyossait came out, and I had a lot of people that were like excited to meet me, and I was excited to meet them too. And it was just this surreal feeling of like, oh my god, I actually like I created something that like means something to people. And it was almost like a falling down while standing feeling.
Oh,
So I was like, what do I do? What do I do now? Like no one really prepares you for that. Like I had somebody show me
fan art.
and all of our well no, it showed me and all of our friends are dead tattoo that they'd gotten on their leg. And it was in GDC, and I was in such a rush that all I could do is go, "Oh wow, hey, cool, that's awesome. Thank you so much for playing my stuff." And then, like maybe 20 minutes later at a cafe, completely separate from them, it's like it hit me as an aftershock that somebody inked this game that I had made in my mom's basement while working at Hot Topic onto their leg, and I had never met them, but it meant that much to them. And it was scary. It scared me, to be honest. Um, so when I look at things like Gyossait and the impact that it had, I'm incredibly flattered, and I feel very lucky and proud of it. But it's almost like the shadow it's cast in so many ways is like more than I can like really think about, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, if I had to,
I'm very shy and quiet, and I love entertaining. But like one thing is, I just don't ever want to take this for granted. You
yeah,
know,
if I had to make like an app comparison, you know Frank Ocean?
Frank Ocean.
Yeah,
I know the name, but I'm not familiar with any work.
or let's use Nine Inch Nails for an example.
Mhm.
Would you say that Gyossait is your the downward spiral?
Oh, oh, I think maybe.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, I mean, every time I make like a horror game, at least, one of the things I want to do is make myself uncomfortable.
yeah,
And to do that, you have to dig into some really, really deep places.
and some really
And
rough shit, I figure.
yeah, and like it's weird from the outside looking in. People would think that there's almost like a mystique or a coolness to somebody who's been through a lot of really rough things. But when you're the person who's been through the really rough things, it's like you'd give anything to not have them hold over you. And so I think a lot of my art, and especially the horror stuff and in horror games, comes as a result of me trying to come to grips with things. And for that, that means I force myself to do the work, to think about the thing that I don't want to think about. And in a sense, that means that when I put a horror game out, it's like a invitation for somebody else I don't know to do the trust fall with me and see where we all go. You know.
Yeah, I understand. It's when I hold on, I'm just trying to find the right words for it.
Uh-huh.
Um, I kind of feel the same way when I create my art.
Mm. Yeah.
But it's I have like way less quote unquote responsibility when I create my art than you do. And again, oh, fuck, I tried to. Oh, I'm sorry. It's the shakes are getting to me. The nervous shakes because I'm trying to
Oh,
avoid saying something stupid.
you're
Um,
fine. I'm not easy to like offend or anything by accident. You don't have to walk on glass around me. It's
I
okay.
know, I know, I know.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, game development is tough, isn't it?
It is. It's more like being a play director than anything, but except that you have to worry about like five different types of scripts. You make props, you make characters, you write a story, you have a set, and then you are building all these things at the same time.
Huh?
And then every time you hit a preview, it's like you're almost like the director sitting in the seats going, and a 5, 6, 7, 8,
Hey,
and then the leading character just starts chewing on his own hair, and the tree catches on fire, and the prop kazoo vibrates through the floor. You don't deal with that on Broadway, but when you deal with video games, you you run into that along with all the other stuff that you normally would on Broadway. So
yeah.
it's a very it's very demanding, but I think because it's that demanding, it's like really, really fun for me.
Yeah. Kazoo
Yeah.
vibrates through the floor, huh? Average Bethesda moment.
Yep. Yep. So it's funny because like the more I've done this, the more I've become almost like I've gained a new sense of forgiving in all video games, including triple A stuff that comes out, and it's like this like weird like half baked turducken that
Oh
is
my god,
nothing
yeah.
like what was supposed to be at E3. Um, yeah, I'm frustrated and disappointed if I was really looking forward to it, but it's not so much this sense of, well, they're arrogant and lazy and self-centered.
Triple A.
I've been
Sounds
working in this long enough now that I've known enough people that work in AAA that it's a project made with people's hair on fire. You know, you have one or two people who are a director and a big picture people, and if the communication chain breaks from the top down to the bottom, you end up getting this thing that was supposed to be really cool, but the road to hell is paved with so many good intentions that by the end you've accidentally created this mess, and the best thing you can do is get it out the door for the fans who've been waiting patiently, and then and then hope to God that you can patch it to the way you want, and hope that the publisher will let you, and so I guess it developed a sense of empathy for for people in even big industry stuff because this shit is hard.
yeah. Especially with the like video game industry nowadays becoming more and more how do I put this, predatory, with like
Hmm.
the constant microtransactions and like the stockholders holding like these people's jobs over their head, and even if they do well, like look at Hi-Fi Rush, they still get axed because what the fucking the CEO or like the stockholder or like the main money man behind all this wanted another goddamn infinity pool. It
Exactly.
yeah, it leads into like this next question here.
Hmm.
Let me find it. Would you say that as the gaming industry evolves, that there's a very real chance that indie games could become the future?
I think that because we have such good tools and we have such good communication, and we have from the outside, this used to be a major for business kind of thing, and it's almost like we've taken a market like very close to slot machines and turned it into an art form.
X.
So, like, part of taking games and making them into something more than uh, a money-making device has been really difficult, and it's been like that for a long time. because we have a group of people who think, well, it should produce money and make people clap their hands for about 15 minutes. On the other hand, we have a lot of proof that you can make far more money by creating something substantial, that you take time and you experiment and you dare to do something else and maybe risk creating a dud in the process. And it creates a world where people are who have money are way too afraid to take a chance that really could be remarkable.
If you ask me to name like 2 examples of like indie games doing really well, one I would say would be Lethal Company, right? That was made by one guy, in his basement. And the other one that I think makes a little less sense on it earning well, but it's still being indie in the technical sense that it was made by a very small team. Travis Strikes Again, No More Heroes by Grasshopper Studios. Suda51, you know that?
Oh, yeah. Yep. Actually, back in 2000, I think it was 10, there was a journalist at GDC that wanted to get an interview with me and Suda51 because simply for at the same time, they had a translator. And they're like, we're going to get you and Suda51 to do an interview together. And I was like, okay, well, I'm shaking all over now, but like, oh, what are we doing? It's like, well, you both have numbers in your name, and I thought it'd be fun. It's like, okay. Yeah.
Oh my god.
So, I mean, I was happy to do it. And then, like, GDC went on, and wires got crossed, and I don't know even how serious they were, but it was neat to almost be on in the same room with Suda.
Speaking of, like, your life being very special, would you say that... No, not this. No. Let me just... Okay. You and John Romero, you bonded over nail polish, right? Have you met any other titans of the industry before or after?
Yeah, I've gotten to meet some really cool people. Tom Hall is somebody I talk with every now and again. Incredibly sweet guy. I've gotten to meet some other id alumni. Mark Diaz, who's now working at Insomniac. We used to talk for a little while, and he was really sweet. When I was just beginning, there was a period where I was good friends with Notch briefly.
Marcus
and because we both came from IG, or not IGF, the
Newgrounds.
My God, what was it called? Not Newgrounds. TIG stores. Man, sorry, it's very 7 a.m., 8 a.m. over here.
Yeah, early memories and late nights, so to speak.
But yeah, Mark and I were friends for quite a while. And it was really a strange and hard thing to see him change.
Yeah.
The Mark, and I don't really want to talk badly about anyone, but his behavior became unacceptable, and I had to stop talking to him. And the thing that sucks is that, like, I miss my friend. You know, that's really the thing ultimately about it, is that I just miss my friend, but he had become so confusingly angry that I just couldn't keep up, and I had to stop talking.
Yeah.
But then I've also, like, I was also friends with Cactus. We talk every now and again still.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, I've gotten to meet some really, really cool people, and some of them had already been established when I began, and then others, I had no idea that they would go on to do what they did when I began either. So that's another part of what I'm fortunate for in my career so far.
Yeah. I don't think I've really met any, like, big famous people once, because
Hmm.
I'm kind of a secluded person. I'm on an
Hmm.
NEET lifestyle, you know.
Oh, I hear ya.
Yeah.
I hear ya.
Um, I heard a rumor one time that you had a duet with David Bowie. Is that true?
Absolutely not. I wish.
Oh.
I wish. I always joke that David Bowie was my father in rock and roll, and it hit me really hard when he passed away.
Yeah.
I was out at a cafe with a couple friends, and we were checking out and heading out the door, and there was a big TV by the door, and they were announcing on the news that David Bowie had passed away. Ironically, on the same day, I was wearing two bright neon pink lightning bolt earrings.
Oh.
And it was like something out of a movie because all of my friends slowly turned toward me and with this expression of concern, like, oh no.
Oh.
And yeah, I cried that night. But I
Yeah.
never got to do a duet or even meet or know Bowie, but his music really meant a lot to me, you know.
Yeah. Is this, if I remember right, 2016 was also the same year where we lost Prince, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Man, 2016 in retrospect fucking sucked
Man, that was like a low watermark. And
in
yeah.
human history. We lost
Mm.
so many great artists that year. Prince, Bowie, who else? Oh, while we're speaking about music, what would you say is like one of the greatest albums of all time?
Hmm. It's hard to put down into one. I'm like a musical omnivore, so
Mm,
like the answer I give today is going to be completely different from tomorrow.
fair.
But I'd say one that really, really hit me um very early on was Pink Floyd's The Wall.
Ah, classic. Um,
Um, I was like about 14 when I heard it, and I got it as an Easter present. And it was like finally hearing that there was hope, even if you felt like you were so frustrated you were going crazy, you know?
yeah.
And the determination in it, uh, especially near the end. I mean, it's an incredibly sad story, but it's almost like there's like this weird glimmer of hope to it that um, really left a permanent impression on me very, very young.
If you asked me the same question, I would probably reply with one of three albums. Uh, Childish Gambino's Because the Internet, Death Haven's Sunbather, or Low's Double Negative. Uh, I figure it's mostly because the aesthetics of these albums spoke to me a lot, but also like the sounds and the symbols and the meanings behind all these songs as well. Especially with uh, fuck, it's like the whole personal meaning that these songs have to me too. I listened to a lot of these songs when I was in the process of creating my art, and just I've also listened to them at like very low points in my life. I've had to deal with a lot of like trouble, you know,
Hmm. Yeah.
and it all comes back to like comfort and acceptance and just you know just this like aspects of
Right.
spirituality and shit like that, right?
Yeah. I feel like a good musician, I mean, especially when we're younger too, it they do something special for us. It's almost like a letter from a relative that we don't, especially if there's someone in their 20s, when we're in our teens. It's a feeling of getting something like a letter from a
Future self.
older for me it was more like a brother or sister I didn't know that was in college and going through something, and they were writing back and they were saying, the world outside of growing up isn't quite as free as you thought it was,
Uh,
and it's not quite as good as you thought it was, and not necessarily to bum you out, but to be like, get ready for this. I'm struggling too, and part of that is normal. So that is sort of what I listened for when I was reaching for musicians to connect with. I think I am still like that with musicians and albums. Like, there's a fine line between being like creepily parasocial and really finding someone that you may never meet, but you have the luck to know that you can speak their language and you can hear them.
Yeah. I see it the same way as with art, like video game creation or like character design or something like that. If you
Hmm.
meet someone that vibes with your ideas as much as you vibe with theirs, and like it applies to the same way that you vibe with musicians, I figure that it could always blossom into something great, either from personal matters or from like the occasional like meeting matters or something.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It leaves a good mark on you.
Yeah.
And then the cool thing is, it's almost like a challenge from that creator to say, like, look what I did, from not just like
Something
what's
from
happened to
nothing,
me,
right?
but like the things that I've influenced me. I've created something original from that, whether it both personal and then also like my favorite music and my favorite movies and all of that. Being able to be original, um, but also comfortable in the fact that it came from somewhere, you know?
Everyone has their inspirations.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now we're gonna cross the beams here.
Hmm.
We've talked about video games and we've talked a lot about music. Let's cross the
Uh-huh.
two. Would you say that the video
Okay.
game music scene is becoming more stale or more varied?
More varied. Um, there are more games out there now than ever before, and more people are making them. But so we are getting some cookie cutterishness, and we're always going to have that.
Yeah.
But the door is open wider than it's ever been before, and it's letting more weirdos in. So we can play around and bring something to bear that normally hadn't happened before. And a video game is a great excuse for that. If you're making something very visual, then as humans, we are compelled to go like, what does it sound like? What does this sound like? So I think it's only natural for us to really dig deeper and start getting more expressive with music as a result of the music being in tandem with a visual element like a video game.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of indie games owe a lot of their like image to their music. The main example I can think of right now is Cult of the Lamb. You know that one?
Oh yeah, yeah. I have a friend who's a very big fan. Yeah, Cult of the Lamb is awesome.
Yeah. Yo, River Boy, if you're out there, talk to me. I want an interview too. Oh God. Um. Now we're gonna go back to talking about straight games,
Hmm.
and here's another one. With indie games, there's a lot of questions about the development process, right? Could you be willing to share details about the development of your most recent game, Phobolis, or whichever way that's pronounced as well?
Phobos has been a lot of fun, but also I have never worked as hard as I have with Phobos. I've had to do a lot of growing as a developer because up till now I've been mainly working in two-dimensional while occasionally experimenting in 3D. And now I lead a team. Now I have a responsibility to um, be someone good to work alongside. Where before I kind of lived under a rock and I could make things as sloppy blah as I wanted to. But now I'm working with people who are more talented than I am, and I have a responsibility to them to be able to speak their language and understand their workflow just as much as they do mine.
Yeah.
So the process of it being collaborative has been a lot for me to learn. I mean, hell, I've never even managed a store in the mall. It's a very different role to go from being a lone gunman to this
Squad commander.
it's scary, but it's exciting too, because when we manage to have things work, the end result is something on magnitude so much further than anything I could have done on my own. So being reverent of that and learning how to communicate with other artists has been the big hurdle. Well, not hurdle, but the big challenge for this job. These people deserve it out of me, you know.
You got to be the leading example, so to speak.
Well, not only that, but I also have to be the one that
Makes the tough decisions.
no, not necessarily, but I have to work with them. I have to trust pieces of my baby in their hands, because there's a reason they're part of this team, and it's because they deserve to be. I've worked as a freelancer for many years, and I know what it's like to have somebody use you as a stylist, as in you're there for your skill and your skill alone, and you're there to follow orders. I do not like being that kind of leader. And so very often I will kind of look at something, and instead of saying, I want this, this, and this, I'll go, I want something more vague. I want you to give this sound something that is more like a bruise, and I want you to take this light and I want you to shatter it. I want you to I give vague direction, and then I trust them to come back with something that would be more imaginative than if I told them the direct thing that I wanted them to do. And then from there, we kind of look over the results, and then we go, okay, well, I like that, or I don't like that. Really, as far as being a leader, it just means that I get to have final say on things, which I will execute, but it's not something I don't know, I don't relish in it, like I'd really rather see what someone else comes up with than me telling them what to come up with.
I think I usually work in like the reverse process when it comes to creating my stuff. I usually take
Mm-hmm.
more inspiration from my friends, or just like more like guidance from them to see what I can do better, or if I can make anything more palatable, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
I think that with like all this creation, it's always going to be a more cooperative thing, right? And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes, even though most of my creation is done isolated, I still know that I have people to share it with, for people to enjoy it with, and I guess this leads into another question. For Bliss, what's your main goal with it? Is it to create something with a lot of meaning, or is it just to create something fun?
We want to change what's expected out of indie FPS games. We want to make the equivalent of, we've been saying this for a while now, but indie
One moment.
FPS,
One moment.
okay.
Go on.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
We want to, you okay?
yeah, I'm fine. I'm fine. Sorry.
Okay.
Fine.
Yeah, we really want to raise the bar. And we know that this is a very tall order. And in fact, we may not succeed. But we're at a point now where indie horror and indie shooters have been getting pretty well established, and boomer shooters, if you will, have this air about they have an air about like they would belong on a pile of heavy metal albums, which is fine because I have tons of heavy metal, but it leaves me wanting something different. And I began thinking like, well, what if The Wall was a video game? You know, what if the Downward Spiral was a video game? What if like Aphrodite's Child 666 was a video game? And this is something that's more consummate and artsy and experimental than what normally exists in the world of these like AA, I guess you will, shooters. We have one extreme, right, where we have these very experimental games that are slow paced, beautiful, very creative and emotional.
Yeah.
And we have another extreme where it's very action-packed, easy to pick up, aesthetically pleasing, and satisfying on those very monkey brain levels, you know? And when we began really working on Phobos, our question was, can we find the space in between? Can we make something where we get to really like bare our soul like in a more artistic way while still creating something that a person who just wants to turn it on and hit enter to get to the good fun part of the game can do in a matter of maybe a few minutes. So we don't want to bog down with exposition, large lore dumps, very crafty cerebral puzzles, but we do want to impart a sense of this is more than just somebody who misses Quake 1. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, I get that. A lot of this stuff harkens to just the spirit, you know, like the spirit of these like old-timey developers back in like the Doom or Doom 2 era, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because those guys created something that was boundary pushing. Something great. But
yeah,
this comes to another question. From what I've seen of Phobos, it seems very grungy, very dark, very gritty. How much of it is inspired by like these modern indie games like Hrot or Gloomwood or Mortal Sin or Nightmare Reaper?
I mean, we look at those and we're like, we obviously pick and choose things that might be good to draw inspiration from, and then also we look at it and go like, oh, we don't want to be that as well. So, we really kind of look back more towards the era of like 1999, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I get that.
We look at almost like imagining what would happen if the Cray supercomputer became a true home device that people could build games for. So we're inspired by this idea of like what 1996 me imagined would be a game in 2024. So we were fashioning the tech after that, meaning we're avoiding things like smooth graphics, very clean, tidy things. We're adding in a lot of that grunge and that dirt. That was a look from back in that time that really still speaks to me. And it felt like something that needed an extra level of sophistication on it. Compared to what we have been seeing in things lately.
Yeah. The thing that just came to mind when you were talking about this was like Bleach era Nirvana, right?
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
something that's beautiful but completely water washed and barely making it through time to your screen.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, oh god. Stop me if this is a like obscure like feeling, but it kind of feels like what is it? Like an old cigarette butt, right? Like you find them on the street and you're like, you pick it up and you're like, huh, I wonder what the hell the story of this is, or something like that,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah, exactly. An old cigarette butt. I think I might steal that actually.
That's what happens when you conceptualize, people.
Yep, exactly. That's how
Speaking
ideas happen.
speaking of like conceptualization, when it comes to
Mm.
creating these kinds of things, these dark horror ideas with all this extreme surrealism, do you ever get the need to push things in different directions on the flip of a dime? Like, say, one level is a dark place with black brick walls with red veins pulsing through them, and the level after is set in the broad daylight in a public park, something like that?
Uh, Not really. For me, it's more like um, sometimes the clash is a good idea, and then other times it isn't. Sometimes you want to remain consistent with your tone all the way through, or you want to be more particular with what you change in the next part of the story. I mean, you don't want it to be a continual monotonous tone, but you also don't want to be giving your audience a whiplash by jerking them around just because you can.
Mm. Um, yeah. You just gotta avoid
I
the.
mean, it can be effective, and you can do that, and sometimes it is good, but it doesn't necessarily mean that that kind of contrast is the only way to do it, or even necessarily the best way to do it.
Mm. This one is uh completely unrelated to any of the other questions that I've written down, but
Mhm.
because it just came to mind right now. But is Phobos related to Gyossait in any way, shape, or form?
Nope, absolutely not.
Ha!
Um, my games are not related to each other in any kind of lore, or any kind of unifying universe. That's not really the kind of thing I like to create. Um, on the other hand, I like that people will project their imagination onto that and try to find ways to maybe to piece them together in their own mind. Um, Kind of like how in like an ink blot test is never wrong necessarily. Um, Part of the fun is that of this is to drive people to come up with their own answers.
Yeah,
Um, but walking the line between that and making sure that I haven't created something that just is
is part of the same
so
thing.
well, I don't want to make something that's pretentious and so far up my own ass that other people are like, oh, well, I have to like uncover this massive jungle of breadcrumbs just to have any kind of closure on it. Um, so it's sort of you choose how far you want to go into this, and you figure out what this means to you because you're part of this experience. As the audience, you are part of this experience. You know.
Hmm. Would you say that it's like you're trying to create something that's more akin to, fuck, like a video game version of House of Leaves?
Yeah, in a way, in a way.
Mhm.
Um, I like being asking the audience to be part of this in a way, but not in a way that it makes them feel like they're um, forced to. That all goes back to the principle that we have with Phobos right now, where we want people to be able to enjoy this as just a very visually arresting shooter game. But if somebody would like to spend more time um, playing around with the breadcrumbs and really reading in between the lines of the dialogue that characters say, and really digging down, they get something that they get these hints of like a very broken paper trail for them to piece together on their own time after the game is stopped.
Mm. while we're on the topic of House of Leaves, have you ever like read House of Leaves? If
Hmm.
so, please help me. I haven't even begun reading it yet, and I'm scared. I've only gotten like one chapter in, and I already feel like the shivers. That like I'm every time I pick up the goddamn thing, it feels like I'm holding a cursed object.
That's normal. Normal. That's normal. That means you're normal. Don't worry, you're fine.
Oh God. Oh.
Uh, it's an alarming book if you've never like seen anything like it before, and I don't think there's anything else much out there like House of Leaves, really. There's a couple other things, but those books where you have to continuously close it, flip it over, and look at the ISBN logo and go, okay, I bought this for $19.99 at Barnes and Noble. This is a commercially available product. There's no way this is going to harm me existentially. And then go back to the chapter and be like, I don't know if this is harming me existentially. Is is a power move. Um, and if I had any advice for reading House of Leaves, um, I would say just stick with the Davidson record.
Yeah.
I this is more my opinion. Other people would probably might disagree with this, but I just really wasn't that captured by the whole second piece, the Johnny character.
Mm.
Um, I've heard explanations as to like why his part is necessary, and I know that means I'm like telling you half the book isn't worth reading, but I couldn't keep up with it, and I felt like I got the meat of the story through the Davidson record. You know?
Yeah. You know a book is fucked when there needs to be like survival guides for it, you know?
Yeah. In the late '90s and early 2000s, I read a lot of Chuck Palahniuk as well, and I feel like some of his books, while they weren't as disorienting, they felt like they should come with some kind of warning.
Yeah.
You know, they were just so visceral. And being like 19 years old, I had never read anything quite that unflinching and these unredeeming characters. Um, and it was mesmerizing to me for a while. But then after a while, I was like, man, I'm just in this continuously rotten place, and I'm so cynical. And I realized I was living off of Chuck Palahniuk and Law and Order for like 2 years. Uh, so break it up. Keep some nice feel good Disney movies on hand. Um, the older I get, the more I enjoy watching family films
Mm.
and very G-rated stuff, especially after COVID.
Everyone needs a
Because
little bit of
like
G rating after COVID, let's be honest.
honestly, yeah, I found myself getting into stuff that was like very simple and childlike. I went back to movies I watched as kids. I watched movies for kids now, like the Mario and Sonic movies that came out. I
Oh,
genuinely enjoyed them, you know.
I did too. I've
Um,
been thinking of like revisiting like Disney's Hercules.
yeah.
Oh man, that shit used to be my jam back in the day. That I used to watch it like religiously, like maybe like 3 or 4 times a week.
Oh
Uh,
my God! Wow.
there was also oh my god, Ed and Eddie, Hero
Yep.
108. You remember Hero 108?
I don't know if we had Hero 108 over here.
Oh,
At least if we did, I don't ever remember catching it.
Chowder was my boy back in the day.
Huh.
Oh, real talk. Oh, man, I wish Chowder was more recognized than it actually was because Chowder was Gumball before Gumball, you know?
Oh, Chowder. I saw Chowder. I don't know about Hero 108 though.
Oh, like
But yeah.
there was
Yeah.
also like these like more like side shows like Skunk Fu or Class of Free K. Remember those two?
I think I heard the names. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
those were
I
always spinning on like Cartoon Network and shit, but I never really got like the full deep on them, you know?
Yep. our team very often will, I mean, considering that this game is so heavy and the subject matter is really, we have to dig into some pretty like morose places. We actually have a palette cleanser board on our development Discord, which is anything from cute animal videos to family films to anything. It's all candy floss, because that's very important when you are gonna dig deep, you know.
Yo, after this interview is done, I could send you a care package of pictures of my cat.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
There's a few more questions I have to ask, but we're approaching like the end. It's gonna be in like 10 minutes, so there's only time for like two more because these are gonna be pretty heavy. So here it goes. What does it mean to be indie, quote unquote, at least from your perspective?
Not have a lot of money. I don't have a lot of money, and I think when it's easy to bankroll what you want to create, it doesn't mean that it's any less legitimate at all. But there's a challenge in the fact that you have to decide between like whether you're going to go out of town or you're going to stay in and do this. Are you going to buy a computer part for work that isn't really going to benefit you, even in playing video games necessarily, but it's going to improve your work? It's almost like a vocation, you know, where you know that you might not get rich, you might not make it, you might not be famous. It might be a mess. People might think you're a moron for doing it, but you can't not try and do it. And taking that risk and putting yourself out there is something that's really, really exciting to me. I have a thing where if I don't do something, if there isn't a certain degree of like danger to it, and I don't necessarily mean like physical, but like I'm this is we're heading to a third year now of working on Phobos, and there's no guarantee that this thing is going to make the waves we want it to, you know. I think that's what indie is for me. It's shooting your shot, even if you don't necessarily have the biggest gun.
True. All right. The final question for now. Okay. So, if you had something to say for your past self, what would you say?
Oof, that is a heavy one.
Yep. That's why I saved it for last.
Yeah. The cliche one would be to say it gets better, but I think more important is that my God, I think I'd have to say that you're going to be okay. I have always been the kind of person that has a lot of anxiety, and the future has always frightened me. I learned from a very early age that the future was something that could hurt you, especially if you believe in it. And it can like hurt you in a very deep and permanent way. And that very quickly devolves into living in a state where taking risks is just not something that you do anymore because it's a liability. So I think I would say something about that to him. And that the risk is worthy. The risk is absolutely worthy. I'm still not rich. I'm still not world famous. And frankly, I'm happier for both of those. I've seen what a lot of money and a lot of attention does to people when it comes along very quickly.
Like with
And
Notch, right?
yeah, and other people where it um you're effectively selling yourself, and not in some kind of sellout way, but you are allowing yourself to be eaten alive. And I never really wanted that to happen to me. I wanted to be able to entertain and have a audience that I appreciated, who appreciates what I make, but also be able to have things that are completely unrelated to me being an entertainer. I'm a giant aviation buff. I love just like playing around with music. I'm never going to make my music into a serious career because that's where I go have fun.
Mm.
Um, and I want these things to be independent of what I do as an entertainer. Um, and when you get recognition, there's a major call from the world to say, this is the only thing you should ever do. And you should always be good at it, and you should never fail. And it it can make people get sick inside to chase that too hard.
Yeah.
So while I encourage people to work hard and believe in what they're making, it's also important to remind people that work is not the only thing that matters in life. You know, we got people in our lives that we need to care for sometimes. I had to take a couple years to take care of an ailing family member, and I really put a lot of my life on hold while that was the most important thing to me. I lost a lot of opportunities that way, but it was worth losing those opportunities because they only got one chance to be that caregiver.
Mm.
So be serious about creating, be serious about entertaining, but do more than that with your life.
Yeah.
Enjoy it. Anyone can be productive, but eventually you just become a masochist, and it's more important to be alive than to be productive. You know,
Never let your work swallow you, right?
effectively, yeah. You don't let it become your identity. It's just so much more about a human being than what they do.
Mm.
You know.
Thank you.
So yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I just say take time to be, while also taking time to do.
Wise words.
I hope so. I hope so. You want to take a look at some of the Phobalists that I'm working on right now? We'll wrap
Oh,
it up with
yeah,
that.
absolutely. I've
All
been
right.
screen recording this entire time, just so you know.
That's okay. Cool, cool. All right.
Oh.
Yeah.
Nice.
This is an area I don't want to really reveal anything too much, so I'm going to be a
Yeah.
little cloak and dagger. But this is a chamber recently created by Hexabyte. Her modeling and blending skills are amazing. We have these beautiful things, these like running, flowing water textures, and I couldn't be happier. Absolute space brain on her. And I've created an infinite hallway.
Oh. Oh, yeah, I've
Yeah.
heard of this trick before. This involved a lot of, like, teleportation, right?
Yep. Yeah,
Yep.
it's a teleporter technique. It's the same thing that they use in Portal, basically.
Or, like,
So we've
myhouse.wad, right? With all the, like,
yeah.
invisible triggers for shit like that, yeah.
Yep. Yep. So we have a system in there for that, and we're learning how to exploit it and use it to the best of our ability without causing computers to melt down. We would like this to be relatively low footprint to to play, so people don't need to have an absolute
monster of a
killer
PC.
machine.
Yeah.
Right. You could be able to buy like a $100 PC and still have a very good time with this, or run it on a very low energy console and still have a great time. So yeah, it's been a lot of hair splitting, but yeah, kind of a cool chamber. Working on the shotgun model. There's a lot more that I've got to do with this, but I'm pretty happy with the stancing and the position of it. We're using the pistol code for it right now, so it's a very wimpiest shotgun in the world. Pew, 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 pew. So,
hey, put it this way.
Placeholder.
At least it's better than the redneck rampage shotgun.
True. Could be worse. Could be worse.
It could always be worse.
Well, Malen, thank you so much. This has been an awesome interview. I haven't done one of these in a long time, and I was nervous too. But yeah, no, I had a lot of fun. And if you want to do like a part 2 or whatever, I'm down. Yeah.
I'm always down to talk to you.
Cool. Oh, well, I'm very flattered. All right, well, I got to get back to work for now, but this is awesome, and thank you so much.
I'm glad I helped you get a lot of like this stuff off your chest.
Yeah, sure.
Later, Gator.
All right, well, you take care. Talk to you soon.
Of course.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.